Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. Welcome to Friday and the weekend, and welcome to all of our guests. This is a special day for me because I get the joy of working with this lovely woman at work, but I also get the joy of a guest that I don't have to virtually do a podcast with. I get to see you, and I got to give you a hug when you came here. Oh, it's so much better. So I'm going to take a first sip, and why don't you introduce yourself to our friends?
Hello, everybody. My name is Elisabeth Eikeland. I work at the Public Affairs Office at Joint Warfare Center in Stavanger, Norway. And that's where the place I met Joshua. And I have learned to know him, and it's been... actually, we were talking about when you were coming and when I was starting at Joint Warfare Center. So we started at the first time, we started at the same time, but I felt there was a good connection between us. So I work with communication.
Yeah, you sure do.
And communication, do you know the origin of that word?
I want you to tell me.
Communicare is Latin.
Yeah.
And it means to share. So now when I'm talking to you, we are sharing communication. We are sharing a conversation to each other. I will probably tell you and the listeners something, and you will tell me. So now we are sharing.
I love it. And just a quick disclaimer, because like she said, we're both in the military. So nothing we say is representative of either the Norwegian Army, which Elisabeth is a major in that, or the U.S. Marine Corps, or our National Defense Services. This is just Josh and Elisabeth and two friends.
Yes.
And I'm so honored to have you here. You got a great big hug from my daughters, and just connecting before you joined us has been great.
Yeah, well, we just for the listeners, we agreed upon that if I get a golden retriever or maybe two, then I could adopt your daughters, because then they wanted to come to me. So
yeah, the conversation sounded a little bit more like kidnapping, because you said, I will just come get you in the morning. Yes. And they were happy to leave me for Elisabeth and a dog or two.
Yes.
Yeah, so you might have bribed my children away from me, but okay. Yeah, so first of all, what are you thankful for this week?
If you had sent me this question last week, I would probably search in my pocket for an answer.
Okay.
But 2 days ago, my youngest son, Sjur, called me. And he is the one of my 3 children that is very introvert.
Okay.
So when he called, he asked how I was doing, and I asked him how he was doing. And I was just patient because I knew that he will come to the reason why he's calling me.
Yeah.
And then he said, Mom, the reason why I'm calling you is that I have never thanked you for raising me and giving me such a great childhood.
Oh, wow.
And he continued, and I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. So when he said, I want to thank you for raising me, I said, you're welcome. Because I was taken by surprise. And then he said, yeah, and you created so many good memories for us. And so that was maybe a little bit long answer for your question, but I'm very grateful that my son called me and told me these words.
Your answers can be as long as you want. That's a beautiful response. Yeah, we were just sharing as soon as she got here the joy of children, and our youngest one, crazy little Karina. She's in that phase where she's starting to give back emotions and share love without it being solicited, or walk up and give you a little hug or scratch your back and say, I love you, Daddy. Or, I came walking in from work today, and she immediately sprinted to the front door and jumped and wrapped her arms and legs around my leg. Oh, there's just no greater feeling than that love. And I can only hope that when my children are your son's age, they would call me and say, Dad, thanks. So that's really special.
It was, for me, it was actually very special. And now, after a couple of days, I feel that that was a very kind gift he gave me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Second, and these are 3 questions I ask everyone, like we talked about, but I think it's a fun way to start things. What are you learning this week?
I like to read books. Actually, that is my life.
That is what you do.
Yes, that's me summed up in a short word, books. So this week, I bought a book by a very young Norwegian woman. She's born in 1998, so she's as the same age as my middle son, Njål. And her name is Veronica Skotnes. And she has written a fascinating book called Det jeg leste i bølgene. And translating that to English, it must be like something like what the what the waves taught me. So this young woman, she's been sailing in a little sailing boat for 4 years.
Yeah.
And she's been sailing along our coastline. And she says that in order to understand our narrative, the Norwegian Navy, or not Navy, the Norwegian Sea and all the ocean we have, you have to learn your coastline.
Yeah.
And she is writing in such a fascinating way, because, as I said, she's born in 1998. But so she's young, but her mind is old. It's very interesting. It's such a mature language.
Yeah.
So actually, I do what I was taught by my grandfather. He taught me the value of reading slowly. And sometimes when I'm eager to just run through the book because it's so good, sometimes you should not do that. You should read slowly. And what she is writing when she is crossing the Norwegian Sea in storms, and the bravery sailing across the coastline up in the Barents Sea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she's a very tough young woman. And and the language, as I said, it's so rich and at the same time very economically. Do you understand what I'm meaning?
Yeah.
Sometimes when the semantic it's not a word too much, but it's not lacking any words as well. He or she is saying something in a perfect way. That is what the book is about.
That's amazing.
It is. It is.
And what a gift for, in the light of communication, that is such a gift for some people to take thoughts and emotions and experiences and paint such a picture. But like you said, doing it economically, where they don't waste words, but they don't use too many either. They just strike a very fine balance of exactly what they should have said is exactly what they say. And you feel what they want you to feel. That's amazing.
It is actually like the Vikings. When they were writing their stories, their sagas, there were no waste of words. So if they describes a warrior and then he got hurt in battle, then they said he went into a battle and he stayed home for the next couple of years. I guess he probably got his knee crushed or his hip broken, but there's no drama. It's only that for the next couple of years, he stayed home.
This happened, and there you go. Oh, speaking of not wasting anything, we did not waste any firewood because I am feeling that heat tonight. So during this episode, if this side of my face turns very red, It's cold outside and it is not cold inside of my home, which is a blessing, but phew, that fire is stoking. I'm glad we
Yes.
moved away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so last question, and then we'll get into some of the listeners' questions. How do you hope to grow as we enter this weekend, and maybe you can rest and reflect on the week?
Um, I read books to grow, and I have this motto that a book or a day without any learning, that is a wasted day for me.
Mm.
And I always aim to learn something new every day. And it doesn't necessarily coming from a book. It can also by talking to people.
Yeah.
Because I have this, I do believe that every person can learn us something that we never knew from before.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting the way I spend my time in order to learn. I read a lot. I hike a lot in the nature.
Hmm.
Birding is actually one of my favorite
Really?
hobbies.
Yeah.
Yes, birding. And also, so when I'm doing all these kind of things, I am then totally, nothing bothers me if there's a work
Hmm.
issue or nothing. I just get new information or new knowledge.
Hmm.
And also I can reflect, and I can be, I can load my battery if I
Yeah.
can describe it like that.
That's a great way to describe it. It's
Yeah,
very charging. Yeah.
yes, to charge my battery. In order to do that, I have to be alone, and I have to read, and I have to think and reflect.
Yeah.
So, as you know, this weekend will not be a weekend like that because we are on exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But
right.
in the afternoon, I'm I I I read a lot when
Yeah.
I come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
reflect.
It's beautiful. I
Yes.
love it. Perfect. Um, so the very first question from one of our listeners said, what cultural differences have you observed in approaches to public affairs within your job?
Um, Actually, during COVID time,
Mm.
I was then a spokesperson at the Norwegian Joint headquarters in
Up in
Bodø.
Buddha. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we as a military people, we following orders.
Hmm.
And I got very surprised when people didn't follow the recommendations from the authorities.
Hmm.
And in that phase, in the beginning of the COVID, I guess every country got tested that maybe the plans or the equipment, we are very fragile now with the long logistic lines and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So what actually surprised me, and I also try to communicate what to do and what to behave, because a lot of journalists call the military.
Hmm.
That actually surprised me, that people in crisis still think they can live their life as nothing around them has happened.
Yeah.
That actually surprised me a lot.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because, as I said, you and I, we are following orders and using our military skills and military logic. That's the reason why it has to be like this. And
Hmm.
in order to stop an epidemic like that, yeah, that was maybe the only thing I can use
Hmm.
as an example for your question.
Yeah. That's a really good response. And it makes me think of the way that people communicate sometimes, especially in, if you think of COVID or even in crisis, the way they communicate with behavior or actions without even speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And it really reveals um, maybe the core of what they really think. Even if they don't say they believe that, there's a lot of truth in just being confronted with an actual crisis, and you have to make a choice, and you have to pick a side or pick a direction to go. So sometimes people didn't even need to say anything. They just started acting a certain way, and it was very telling about, okay, this is who you are. You may not have even seen that about yourself, but this is actually who you are because you're doing this now. Okay.
Just to follow up that, Norway closed down the 12th of March
Mm-hmm.
in when COVID came. And we were told that the commuters, because I was commuting then
Mm-hmm.
as I do now, and then we were told that commuters are not allowed to go home, travel home.
Yeah.
We have to stay in the HQ. So I thought, okay, this will be interesting. What to do at my room, at my military accommodation. So I thought, I have books and I can pick up knitting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very Norwegian of you. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. And I have a love-hate relationship to knitting.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I went to the yarn shop and I bought, my goal was to buy yarn.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only allowed one customer inside the shop at that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the sign. So I went in and there was a customer paying, and she saw me coming in the entrance and she was screaming, get out, don't come in, you get away from me. And I was thinking, we haven't even started yet.
Right.
And this is the
Yeah.
behavior. And I thought, this will be very interesting the next months or
however long. And
yeah.
it sure was. Oh God. I'm glad we're on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Next question is, what bugs you when it comes to communication, or do you have a communication pet peeve?
Yes. The worst thing a person that are having communication as a job,
Mm-hmm.
every time I heard this sentence, I sort of get goose skin. No comment. No
I'm
comment.
glad I haven't said that to you yet tonight.
That is such a bad thing to say.
Yeah.
You can, for instance, say, I have to check it up, or unfortunately, I can't tell you anything about it yet.
Right.
But no comment. I think that has nothing to do with communicare, to share.
Mm.
And also, no comment, and also not having a communication plan when it is a crisis.
Yeah.
And then again, but yeah, you can't have a plan for everything because you don't know what to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if you are working in an organization, maybe you have a ferry company or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You should always have a couple of scenarios and try to be prepared. It's impossible to be prepared, but when something happened, I sometimes get very surprised when there is no crisis management or not a proper plan.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes you have to improve because you can't control all the scenarios. But it's very important to think through things that can hit you in a special, no matter what you are doing. If you're a doctor, a police, there are always a lot of scenarios, and have a crisis communication plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I read that question, what bugs me with communication? And is there a pet peeve? And the first thing my mind went to, I will share it because it's actually, I think, the most annoying thing for me. And it's not about what people say or don't say, it's a simple action. It really bothers me when people won't do what we are doing and look at me in my eyes. And that doesn't mean like, oh, you owe me the respect, but like when you don't have someone's attention and they haven't given you their undivided attention or focus when you're communicating, I just can't imagine doing this right now and you just, yeah, I'm listening. Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
So when people can't just look at your eyes, that actually just pisses me off so badly. I'm like, oh my goodness, please, right here.
Can you imagine being a baby today and come entering this world, and they need the bonding with the parents
Right,
or
right,
the caretakers, and the person that you should if I am a mother and I'm looking into my cell phone,
right. Yeah,
can you imagine how difficult it must be for a, a baby who is trying to bond
right.
and there's no eye contact?
There's nothing. It's
and
so important.
and sometimes when I see mothers and fathers
Mm-hmm.
walking with the tram, checking the cell phone, I just want to take the cell phone and throw it into the sea.
You should.
Because
You should do that. Please do
yeah,
that.
maybe I should do that now.
Do that now.
Tomorrow there will
Tomorrow.
not be one cell
Right.
phone next to a tram.
After you come steal my children to take them to the pub.
Yeah, that's
Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. After that. Yeah.
It's going
No,
to be a busy day tomorrow.
it's,
Yes.
yeah, you have a lot to do. You should take notes. Um, it is though. It's very, I just find it disrespectful, but you hit a very good point. It's, it's the behavior that some people do it with their children, but I think a lot of people might appreciate the importance of being present for a child more than most probably are there for their children for the most part. But then as we get older, I think we forget that grown adults need you to be present as well. And it's challenging, but I think it's the biggest thing I try to focus on is if, whether it's work or my children or here, if someone comes up, and it's easy when it's an intentional, oh, I want to communicate and share with you, so I will give you time. But it's challenging when I might be busy or when I have a distraction or a thing I need to do. So I'm engaged with something else. But this is the way I was raised, and this is the way my father and mother were with me, and I value that a lot. Is that if I came up and needed something, they would stop what they were doing and they would set it down. My dad did a lot of construction work, so he would turn his tool off, put it down, take off his safety equipment, and turn to me. And it might take 20, 30 seconds to set everything aside, but it was a very deliberate, okay, now I am present. Now I am here with you. It maybe even get on my level when I was younger to where he could look at me in my eyes. So the things he was modeling as an example were beautiful because it's, hey, put your stuff down and be present with people. So I think not looking at eyes, or maybe just the inability for some people to just really be present with the other person they are sharing with, communicating with. It's really important. So that's my pet peeve. Yeah.
Yes. And actually, working at Joint Warfare Center, there's a lot of training audience visiting Joint Warfare Center, and they have a schedule, of course, during the exercise. But that has actually made me to be aware about the usage of cell phones.
Yeah.
Because I have been thinking a lot about this, but actually the training audience has helped me. So I've been thinking about, I have never heard somebody say, or people say very often, I wish I had more time for my kids or my grandchildren. I wish I had more time for doing my hobbies. But nobody, not one single person had said to me, I wish I had more time on Facebook and social media.
Right.
And looking at our training audience, they are staring into the cell phones in every break. And the reason why I've been aware of it is because I passed them on my way to an office or so. So then actually not being present, I have actually the last year been very aware of my own presence because I have studied the people that are totally lost in their cell phones, and that is also something with communication. And like you said, put away the things and listen.
Yeah, and I think it mirrors very nicely what you were saying about when you read your book, you slow down, and you said your grandfather taught you the value of slowing down to really read and maybe even like marinate in the words and put it down and reflect on it. But the ability to do that, and this is something for the listeners and watchers that I love about this woman, is I will walk by your desk or your office, or you will come by my desk. And if I'm going down the section of where we work at, where she is, I have to make sure that I look and make sure she's in there first, and then knock in and go in to say hello and get a good Elisabeth hug and say, let's take a couple of minutes to catch up and say hi. And it is always very refreshing. It recharges my battery. But you are always very present to just put down what you're doing for everyone, not just for me, and give a smile and share a story, or, oh, would you like a cup of coffee? And the ability, it might seem like a silly thing to point out for communication, but the ability to give someone your physical and emotional attention actually opens the door for meaningful communication. And if you try to communicate without opening that door by being present, I don't think it lands the way that you want it to. I don't think the communication is effective. So it starts with just this.
Yes.
And it's so simple, but we forget it so easily.
Yeah, it's quite ironic that we're forgetting something that has existed for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And now when we have never been so modern before as we are today.
Yeah.
And still we are actually going back to when we were all, how can I say it? Before all the pyramids were built. We are like traveling backwards in time in some of the things we do as human beings, and that is the lack of communication.
Yeah. And then this is a really good question. You're a good reader, so this is very helpful. One of our listeners said, "What is your favorite book or resource on communication?"
Have you read anything about Marcus Aurelius?
I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think his meditations.
I love that.
That is a book that has given me a lot. And Marcus Aurelius, he was a Roman Empire. He was the empire in the Roman Empire, and he wrote notes to himself, and I cannot imagine that he thought that in 2,000 years' time from now on, people will read my notes. But we are lucky enough to do it so. So that book has given me a lot, and I have grown with his words.
Yeah.
It has given me reflections, and when I'm hike, I'm not far away from what I read in some books. I go to my archive inside, and sometimes I actually have thought how heavy books are.
Yeah.
But when you have read them, the knowledge you have,
It's there.
it's not a gram.
Yeah.
Isn't it that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Marcus Aurelius. But there's also another writer that has given me a wonderful novel based on his life. And I'm sorry to say that I think maybe the movie industry have destroyed the book.
It very well could have. Yeah.
And that is Shantaram. Have you heard about that book?
I have not.
So Shantaram is written by Gregory David Roberts,
Okay.
an Australian criminal that was in jail in a high-risk prison. So this is back in the 1980s, or maybe at the end of 1970s. So he managed to escape from a high-risk prison. And he was in because of he was doing narcotics and was a criminal due to narcotics. And he escapes to India. And the only place he could stay where nobody could find him, it was in the slum in Bombay.
Yeah.
And during this book, everything is based on his experience in India, and some are really, really bad. And he is definitely not an example of a person you think can change 180 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually does.
Wow.
And this is a book of resilience.
Mm.
It's a book about survival and how to turn from a criminal life and to become a very wise person. So he has some skills in paramedics.
Mm-hmm.
So he ends up actually to be a sort of a slum doctor.
Mm.
So from being a hardcore criminal, he changed his life,
Yeah.
and it's a very interesting travel to see a person who regrets
Mm-hmm.
and how he makes up. Of course, he ends up in some criminal people there as well, but he's doing what makes him the better person of himself, and that is by helping poor people. So
Yeah.
he's tried to pay back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting book, and as I said, I think maybe the Hollywood industry destroyed it. So I have only seen 10 minutes of the
Mm-hmm.
movie, and then I thought, no, I will keep it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Shantaram,
Perfect.
and I have bought more than 25 Shantaram books
Okay.
and giving the books to my friends in for birthday and Christmas. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's one person in my circle that doesn't
That hasn't received it.
Yes.
That's a good gift.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mm.
Very nice. So final question, and it's simple, but this is not one that I shared with you. This is one that I had for you because I wanted to get just a very first thing top of mind from you. What is your favorite question to ask someone when you meet them for the first time and you are introducing yourself? So to learn about them, what is the way that you meet people? So if you're going to meet me for the first time and you ask me a question to get to know them, what is the way that you like to do that? Do you have anything?
Do you know that is actually interesting question, because sometimes when I'm at a shopping mall or
Mm-hmm.
when I walk in the park and I see a person, it can be a woman, for instance, at my same age.
Yeah.
I can see she's coming from another culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never done this, but I've done it 100 times inside my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to sit down next to this person
Yeah.
and say, how has your life been?
Mm.
What have you done in your life,
Mm.
with your life?
Yeah.
That is actually something, maybe I should start doing this, because I can see that this person, when I pass, has a story and would definitely teach me a lot. And I guess women from other countries, and maybe they are refugees coming here, they have a totally different life than I have.
Yeah.
So that is something I really would like to start asking people.
Yeah.
How's your life been?
Yeah.
Are you happy? What made you happy and what
Mm-hmm.
made you unhappy?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Well, I thought of that, in all honesty, because when I talk to you, there are a lot of ways that you communicate with people. And this is probably one of the biggest compliments I could give someone. But your ability to connect with other people and communicate very clearly. And also, she's communicating definitely not in her first language. So that is I'm honored and humbled that you can sit here and carry on a conversation when you would clearly prefer to do it in Norwegian, but I would not be able to communicate that well. Little things. Um, so not in her first language, but also your ability, even outside of your preferred language, to actually connect and be thoughtful. reminds me a lot of my father because he was really good at letting everyone feel like they were welcome when they were around him. And that's a gift to be able to speak to someone and they immediately feel warm or welcome. And I saw it with my daughters, and it's a beautiful thing. But a question he asked, I was curious what your answer would be to that, because a question he taught me, and it's very similar, which doesn't shock me. He would always introduce himself and say, "Hi, I'm Joe," and then they would introduce themselves like, "Oh, hi, I'm Josh." And he'd say, "Oh, what is your story?"
Oh, yeah.
And they would say, "Well, what do you mean?" And he would say, "Whatever you want that to mean. I would just like to hear your story."
Mm.
And it's almost like he hands someone a blank
Mm.
piece of paper and a pen and says, "Just write me whatever story you want." And then he would just lean in and listen and not interrupt and just hear their story. And learning from that and watching him do that with people, and that's not made up. I mean, anyone in my family could vouch for this. He would do this with people. It's such a simple, powerful, open-ended question because people go like, "Oof." And the thing that comes to their mind in that moment is what's on their heart to share. And he
Mm.
would just hear them. And you hear some amazing stories when you don't lead them anywhere. Just say, "Oh, whatever you want to share. What's your story?
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's the microphone. You can tell me." And I think the older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated how powerful and simple of a communicator he was. Much like that girl born in 1998 that wrote the book about the Norwegian coastline that you were speaking of. You said she was very economical with her words. That was my father. Or those like you. People I know that I really respect their written, their spoken, their behavioral communication. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's just always thoughtful. So that's what I thought of when I asked you that was
Yeah.
him.
Very interesting that your father had a similar approach. It's
Yeah, it
yeah.
is. It's the same. And
Yeah.
that's why I was like, oh, that makes sense. So
Yes.
yeah. So before we close this out, and to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you if there's anything you would like to say to sort of finish this off or anything that's on your mind.
Uh, I can finish uh, your conversation with telling you that I'm actually very introvert.
Yeah.
And that is the ironic irony in it, that I, as an introvert, do communication.
Mm,
But there's something with you fake it till you make it.
yeah, you're very good at it.
And I think working with words, being a communicator,
Mm,
it is very important to read and to get knowledge from different writers, for instance, or it's very important to expand your mind, because knowledge is the only way to be a better communicator and also a better listener.
mm.
So maybe I should end my conversation with you with I think communication, the industry need more introverts for communication,
Yeah,
because I think I see stuff from a different angle.
yeah,
I'm 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 aware of that. I'm maybe a little bit different, but that is actually a strength.
mm,
Not being like the 99 other people, but be some kind of not an outsider, but seeing it from a different.
yeah.
Uh, uh, the German, they call it Querdenker,
Mm,
and that means that you think differently, or
mm-hmm.
um, and yeah. So I think we need more Querdenkers.
I agree. Yeah, I love that. The ability to encourage just an actual original thought and a reflective thought. It requires quiet and it requires some solitude. And but I will say, even though you say you're introverted, which I believe, even though I don't see it much, um, that is a gift because when you do communicate, I watch you not just with what I experience, but with other people. And it's such a gift to everyone around you. So I am beyond thrilled that you joined me. And I'm so thankful because tomorrow as we enter into, yes, a weekend where maybe we won't have as much time off and we're still doing some things for the job. I can't think of a better representative for your nation, for what we do at the Joint Warfare Center than you, because you always are a thoughtful communicator and you are always present. And you can navigate many languages and many words very economically and beautifully. So I'm so glad you were here. To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend. Cheers to you.
And
Thank you, my
thank you
friend.
for inviting me, Josh.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my deepest reflections and most personal stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.